Boston, Crockett's Victory Garden.
Welcome to Crockett's Victory Garden. I'm Jim Crockett, and you see what I've been doing today, taking some sweet peas. Now, sweet peas do best in the cool time of the year, and this hot weather with the temperature up into the 90s raises havoc with them. But plant your sweet peas early in the spring as we do now, did this spring, and you should get some good ones next year. And of course, if you live in the high altitudes or by the ocean where your nights are cool, the sweet peas will do best of all. But I want to put these down in some water here, but I want to show you primarily what we have here in the way of a clematis, another vine growing on this little netting that we have against the fence. This is a clematis called Jackmanii, a very, very handsome variety which will grow in most parts of the country. This little plant has been in here a matter of about 3 months and is already in blossom. A year from now, this plant would grow 6 to 8 feet tall, or maybe taller, and literally have thousands and thousands of flowers over a course of several months during the summertime. Well, I should say that when you plant your clematis, be sure that you put a lot of lime in the soil because that's what they like. Today, we're going to divide some bearded iris. I'm going to plant some bush lima beans. I'm going to plant some primroses, which won't blossom until this winter and some next spring. And then, but first of all, I want to show you what to do if you give your houseplants a summer vacation. First of all, the place to choose. Choose a place that gets shade from about 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 or 3 in the afternoon so that the plants don't get the fierce rays of the sun. Just to give you an idea of what happens to a begonia, let's say a tuberous-rooted begonia, when it's left out in the sunshine. It literally gets a sunburn and it just kills all of that tissue. Now this plant was in the sun, then brought back into the shade again. You see the new foliage is nice and healthy. Well, what I want to show you here is what I have done to put these plants outside for the summer. We have a trench about 8 inches deep, filled with, in this case, just coarse pebbles. Now you could use gravel or sand. The idea being it should be something with very good drainage because we don't want the plants to get waterlogged in the summertime. And the other thing that this heavy material, such as the pebbles, does is this. When you put it around a plant such as that, you sort of anchor it so that the wind can't get it. You take a plant like this little avocado with all of this foliage at the top, it just acts like a sailboat in a brisk wind and it'll topple over without any trouble at all. So you bury them in the soil, in the pebbles. Now the other thing is, by burying them down like this, right up to the rim of the pot, you keep this soil in the pot cool. Many a plant growing in a container dies because the soil becomes overheated. Maybe plenty of water, but the soil becomes very, very hot and the plant succumbs. The other thing is, when you put these in your pebbles, you must remember that there's a tendency for roots to grow through the holes in the bottom. So after they're buried, every once a week, just give them a few twists like that to break off any roots which might have started to grow. Well, another thing that you should look at this time of year, take a plant like this asparagus fern. Very much overgrown, extremely poor color. This plant needs a fresh lease on life. If it were mine, I would cut it right off at the pot level and repot those roots into fresh soil and start this plant growing all over again. Then we have some good, 2 or 3 good plants out of this for growing in the house during the winter. Don't worry about mistreating your plants out here in the summertime. This is a chance for them to gain their strength for fall. If their plants can't do well in the summertime, you can bet your life they won't do very well for you in the house. So this is sort of the testing ground for them. So that's your summer care of houseplants. Now let's go over and talk about thinning some vegetables. And the one that I'm going to look at right now is a pumpkin called Cinderella. And here we see the name of this one, Pumpkin Cinderella. This makes fruit that weighs 7 to 10 pounds each. Oblong, beautiful Halloween pumpkins and also good for eating. About 3 weeks ago, I sowed, 8 or 9 seeds in this group. And I'm going to come right now to one of the things which many gardeners find it very, very difficult to do. You know, you look at all of those plants and say, gee, they all look so green and healthy. I don't want to kill those. Well, you have got to make up your mind that if you don't thin them out to only 2 plants, you'll have foliage here all summer, but no pumpkins. So save the strongest plants and simply haul these others out. Now, I can tell you right now that these plants won't stand transplanting. They won't live that way, so I'm going to thin out to this plant and this plant. Now, here we have 2 good husky plants spaced roughly 9 or 10 inches apart. They will form the whole big clump that will give us pumpkins here this fall. All right, that's the Cinderella pumpkin. You do the same thing with all of your squash plants, summer squash and winter squash as well. But now let's talk about cabbages. In the beginning, I want to show you these 5 plants here of a cabbage called Savoy King. I'm very partial to this. This crinkled foliage is exceedingly succulent and good tasting. Notice that here we have a plant partly matured. This one still quite small. This one really big enough for harvest today, and these others at various stages. The good point that I want to say about that for the home gardener is you could pick this one now, you'd have the others coming along over a period of time. If you had them all harvest at one time, you'd have so much coleslaw you wouldn't know what to do with it. Next is one called Ruby Ball, and I'm going to pick one of these just to show you what it is we have here. Ruby Ball, an early cabbage, a nice one. The head on that is just as hard. You can perhaps hear that, just as solid as a rock. That is a beautiful cabbage and something that you can grow in your own garden. I'm going to talk more about cabbages right now and go over here to my cold frame where 3 weeks ago we sowed some seed of some cabbages, some late cabbages, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, and collards. And you can see all of these plants. The chief thing I want to show you here is that they are not crowded, and that's the important thing. I did not sow the whole seed package, but just a few of them spaced as far apart as I could in the row. Try to give them a ½ inch or so of distance between them. And now we can reach in here and simply take out a couple of those seedlings like this, move them over into the garden and plant them. Now this is the kind of seedling I like to get with a lot of good vigor to it. In here we have a soil with a good deal of lime, which is what the cabbages need to avoid root diseases. You take a little seedling like this with a fine root system, simply set it in the soil like that. Set it down so that the seed leaves, that is these little leaves here, are just about at the soil level. Put that in like that. I'm going to make a little trench around here to hold a nutrient solution in water. Slip a little cardboard collar over it like that to keep the cutworms away. Well, let's just put in another one right up here. Now I'm setting these at 18-inch intervals, and that would be the main crop on this row. These in just like that. Got a couple of collars here to slip over the top of this little fellow, and something to hold the water in. We'll plant another one over here like this. Slip a collar over the top of that, and the cutworms can't bother it. Now those plants are ready for watering, but before I do that, I'm going to ask you to remember that back on that row of cabbages where I just picked one, we had a previous crop of lettuce, because I planted a lettuce between each one of the cabbage plants. This lettuce will be ready for harvesting before the cabbage begins to plants touch each other. This, by the way, is a summer variety called Slow Bolt that won't turn to seed in the hot weather. And we give those a nice drink of water like this. And then I should say that if I were doing this at home, I would plant these out on a cloudy day or late in the afternoon. But we're doing this right in the sunshine. And what I'm going to do now is just give them a little personal shade of their own. Just take a little hay like this and spread over the top of those plants, and they will be shaded from the hot rays of the sun. A couple of days we can take that off, and they'll be growing madly and soon be ready for harvesting. I want to go back to my cold frame again, and we're going to sow some more seeds. And this is all that white cauliflower called snow crown. Now, a couple of weeks ago, you perhaps saw me harvesting the big snow crown cauliflower. Pure white, beautiful things. Well, I'd like some of those in the fall, too. They grow best in the cool times of the year, mature in the cool times of the year. I'm going to sow the seed in here now, not too thickly, but a ½ inch deep. Like that. That's all of those that we'll need. You don't need a great number of plants in the ordinary home garden, and I'm going to just use an ordinary potting soil to cover those over, because this won't cake. This will be nice and soft so the seedlings can push their way through. We'll tap that down, give that a drink of water, and keep it moist, and that's what the secret is from now on. I must make this point to you. Relatively few garden centers provide young, healthy plants anywhere in the middle of the summer, let's say. If you want them, you better grow your own. You can buy the seeds and sow your own and get some grand seedlings coming along. Well, there's an old slogan in gardening that your corn should be knee-high by the 4th of July, and I want you to see how our corn is coming. We took quite a chance and planted this when it was very, very early in the spring for this time of year, but the corn is an early variety and a very dwarf one. I don't want you folks in Iowa to laugh at my corn because I know how tall yours grows. But here we go. The tassels are on it. The silk is on it right down in here. And this corn, the ears are beginning to form. In another couple of weeks, we'll be picking our first corn. This is a very early variety called Butter V, V-double-E. Not as sweet as some of the late ones, but you know that first ear of corn is awfully good in the spring. Now we come to tomatoes. This year I've been growing tomato plants in pairs, treating each partner of the pair in a different manner. This one is called Jet Star, a very fine mid-season tomato. It's grown in a cage. Nothing has been done to that plant except to feed it and water it and let it grow. Next to it, I have that same variety trained to a stake with all of the suckers pulled off. Well, here's one up in here that needs to come now. Take out all of these. So everything is on one stem, and you can see the different habit of growth. Now, and on the one in the cage, take my word for it, the biggest tomato is about as big as a marble. Eventually, I'll have an enormous crop here, but they're coming late. But look over here. You see these tomatoes? Just because they've had adequate sunshine, maximum sunshine, fresh air, and all of the growth has concentrated on one stalk. Okay, let's go to a little bit more pruning back here with a dahlia. Large flowered dahlia. This is the national flower of Mexico. Dahlias normally grow just as you see this one here, a center flower and then side flowers on the side branches. You know, if I wanted to, I could let all of these grow and have a number of small flowers, or I could take out those side buds like that and force the growth into that one bud. And so when we come to cut this dahlia as a cut flower, we'll have a long stalk on it and a very large flower. Well, I want to go down now and have you look at the perennial garden, which has been growing apace. I'm kidded by Gary Motto, who is our gardener here, saying that every week, Jim, you say that this garden is at its best, but it gets better as we go. This is the first of the hollyhocks coming in, a pure white one with a golden throat. Very, very lovely flower. Then we come on down with delphiniums and such, but what I really wanted to show you this week is this enormous cluster of phlox. Now there is in here only 3 plants of a variety called Miss Lingard. And this is how you spell it, Lingard, Miss Lingard. Now I know for a fact that this variety has been around for at least 50 years. It's tremendous. The flowers themselves, you might say, is the real reason for growing them, but many a gardener appreciates this variety because its foliage is not susceptible to diseases, as is that case of most phlox. Miss Lingard, a very hardy perennial, one that you'll want in your own garden. Now down in front of Miss Lingard, you'll see these sword-shaped leaves of the bearded iris. This plant has come and blossomed, finished blossoming 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't want to move that clump because I divided it last year and we got some good flowers. I want to go across here to a clump that I brought in from home, a great big old clump, to show you what you should be doing with bearded iris at this time of year. Now let me go, first of all, before I tear this clump apart, let's just take a look at it and talk to you about the life cycle of the bearded iris. If we start with a plant, it goes in an ever-widening circle with the lively parts of the plants and the flowering parts of the plants on the periphery of the circle. The centers of the plants eventually die. The roots, the rhizomes are called, no longer produce flowers. And of course they exhaust the soil. So about every 4 years, you should take these iris up immediately after flowering, and that's the key. Take them up now, and then we divide them. Now here's what you see. Here's the stalk that blossomed this year. That one is gone. We won't be, nothing else can happen to that. But down here we have what we call the 2 fans of growth. Now these are your potential for next year. And the year after each of these fans will divide again. Because we're going to transplant this in a hot time of the year, I'm going to reduce some of the foliage, and so we end up with something which looks like this. Now this is a prime division of a bearded iris, and I'm going to show you how to plant it. I should say first of all that the old roots die. These roots are already dead. They die immediately after flowering, and then you see here the new roots have just begun to grow. So this is the time immediately after flowering to do your planting. Now, all we're going to do here, we can even take off some of those old roots because the old ones, I say, are dead and they're only to anchor the plant. Another key to the culture is this. Plant this root or rhizome in such a way that half of it is above the soil. And if you can see this, you'll have the key to good culture of the German iris. Get half of this rhizome above the soil so that it will bake in the sun. Now what we're going to do, eventually would do in my garden, I would set another one here and another one here, budding them close together, because the clumps will get larger and larger as the years go. 3 or 4 years from now, we dig up the whole clump and go through the process again. Well, that's the bearded iris, and we've had a lot of questions about them. Now, I'm going to step quickly across here to the Swiss chard, which is beginning to get a little bit thick. I would like the plants to be roughly a foot apart, or 15 inches. I'm going to take out the intermediate plants here because, like beets, and this is one of their relatives, the Swiss chard can be transplanted. So we can take these plants and set them elsewhere in the garden so that our spacing here will be about right. Well, there we go. Now you see what the chard spacing should be. But I have here discovered on this one plant out of the entire row 2 leaves that exhibit a problem we've had many questions about. Can you see this little discolored section, sort of brownish green section of the leaf, sunken and dead? This is evidence of the work of the leaf miner. The leaf miner attacks beets, Swiss chard and spinach particularly. A fly lays an egg under the leaf. It hatches and burrows into a little white grub which goes along making little tunnels, they call it. That's why it's called a leaf miner. It goes between the upper and lower layers of the leaf. Control these with diazinon, D-I-A-Z-I-N-O-N, sometimes sold as spectricide, but it's diazinon is the material. This will should be applied weekly, and you won't have any problem with your leaf miner. Now, this couple of leaves apparently did not get touched. Well, I understand we're running out of time, so we're not going to get to planting the lima beans, but we are later on in the day going to set them right in here. We're going in the greenhouse and talk about primroses. Now, I have two different kinds of primroses that I'm going to plant today, but on the way in, I want to show you another plant which you may not have heard of. This is the yellow calla lily. And you know, there's those old slogans about roses are red and calla lilies are white, but I want to show you that calla lilies can be yellow as well. This one does very well. The leaves are spotted in a very attractive manner. This is something which can be grown at any time of the year as a houseplant. Well, let me talk for a minute about primroses and the kinds that I'm going to grow today. I'm going to grow, first of all, the one called the Polyanthus Primrose, sometimes called the silver dollar primrose, because each of its flowers in a cluster are as big as a silver dollar, if they're cared for properly. Many shades of cream and yellow, reds, lavenders, and purples. And the other one I'm going to grow is called the fairy primrose, a little pink and white flowered one which blossoms in the house in the wintertime. The Polyanthus will blossom outdoors next spring. I'll always start with the soil. This soil is just some ordinary compost that I brought in from home, simply organic matter which is rotted down in my garden. I use a 1/4-inch mesh of hardware cloth as a screen. And we simply screen some of this material like that. Just get the rough stuff off, but don't throw this rough material away. This rough material we'll put down in the bottom of the pot for drainage. And you can see what we have in here. This is the drainage material. Then I'll take some of this good soil and put it right on top. Now you might say, well, gee, I don't have compost. What can I use? Don't use peat moss in this instance with primroses, but go out underneath a bush someplace where there may be some old decayed leaves and get some of that soil and sift it so you have something that looks like this. And then over here I have what is known as a milled sphagnum moss, which is ground up sphagnum moss, a sterile material which I'm going to sift on top of the soil like this. This will help to keep the seeds moist and will prevent that terrible disease called damping off. All right, so we have the soil and the moss on top, and this is what we do with the seeds. These are so tiny that you cannot cover them or else they'll never make it to the light of day. So you can hardly see them hit. But we scatter those seeds over the top like that. That's all that we can do. Don't cover them. Then we put them in water, in a dish of water, and let them soak right up. Then they have to go into a dark place for about 30 or 40 days before they'll sprout. And I mean a place like down cellar where it's perfectly dark, not just a shaded place. When they sprout, the minute they sprout, bring them out into light, but remember that primroses like shade, and they must have a shady place to grow. Okay, let's get to a very few questions today. The first one comes from British Columbia. I have masses of cherry blossoms on a large tree, but only a handful of cherries. How come? I think maybe your tree needs a partner. Now, if you will inquire at your provincial officer on agriculture, he'll tell you what variety of cherry you have and what other variety you should plant close to it for cross-pollination. From Raleigh, North Carolina. How can I get rid of white flies in a vegetable garden or in the greenhouse? We could use poisons, but are concerned about edibles. you could use a combination of pyrethrum and rotenone, and this is sold in under many trade names. This is purely organic from plant material itself and is not poisonous to warm-blooded creatures. You will have to spray them every 3 or 4 days because whiteflies can be controlled by this type of spray only in the adult stage. I'm having a problem with aphids on my tomatoes. Is there an organic method of solving this problem? Yes, if you'll take the leaf of your tomato right in your hand like that and put a good strong force of water on it from your garden hose, you'll wash them so far away that their short legs won't even carry them back in time to get back to those tomatoes in the summer. I set out caladium bulbs a month ago. Not one has poked through yet. What's wrong? Well, I'd be willing to bet that with this kind of weather, they'll be out of the Texas. You mentioned that you could take a dahlia leaf and it would grow into a plant. Will you tell me the exact process? Mine was set into the ground and just went dead. Well, I'm afraid you misunderstood me. We don't take a leaf, we take a stem and root the stem. We have some lovely plants growing out here in the garden that we grew from cuttings of the stem, just as any other type of plant is grown from a cutting. Good question. What's causing bitterness in my vegetables? Radishes, lettuce, carrots. Well, bitterness comes from slow, dry growth, and so you've got to use a lot of fertilizer and a lot of moisture. Well, we're out of time again. Next week, I'm going to show you how to sow seeds of biennials and perennials for next year's blossoming. We're going to blanch some endive. I'm going to show you how my parsnips are coming along, and we'll do a little operation on them. We'll talk about a special kind of lettuce I brought in from England this spring. I'm Jim Crockett in Crockett's Victory Garden, and I hope you enjoy the program every week.